This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
Well, it's getting to be that time. Friday night lights on all over the valley. High school football is here, so let's check in with an expert here on the Extra Point podcast. And you can see him on the AIA wrap-up show, hear him on 1580 every week talking high school football, also on Sports 360 AZ. The one, the only, Cody Cameron zooms in here to the Extra Point podcast. And how would you describe your anticipation right now for high school football season?
I'm fired up, Mark. I've been down here for 7 years now, and it just seems like every single year the talent level in the state of Arizona increases. You know, we're like QBU, right, where every team's got a quarterback, but now you kind of start seeing it at the skill position, at the offensive tackle position. But not just 6A, like 2A through 6A, there's talent everywhere. So my excitement level, ecstatic, man. I'm pumped for the high school football season. How
do you keep track of everything on a Friday night all over the state?
It's impossible. I mean, thank God for social media and Twitter, but, you know, I'm from Northern California, so like I understand the California high school football scene, but in terms of media presence in the state of Arizona, you know, I think we have to be at the top, you know, in the entire country. It's just every outlet, every single TV station and every college. And there's so many different publications out there that all cover the same thing, man. It's high school football. It's special, right? It's such a special moment for those high school athletes and the coaches. And so social media is a big part of that, just being friends with so many media guys and just bantering throughout the year on that. And then coaches and film. So I prioritize trying to watch as much film as I possibly can. I'm fortunate to be on a couple huddles, but it's tough, man. But I go on Twitter and I look at Chris Eaton, Gridiron Arizona's paper, pen to paper, looking at the final scores every Friday night. And I look forward to doing those things, man. So
at some point, I'm going to send you some video of me missing blocks in Texas in 1995, and you can grade that for me. Maybe you and Ralph Amston. As far as just storylines here heading into the season, what are some of the biggest storylines in Arizona high school football heading into 2024?
Well, we saw that wave, right, of last year, kind of the West Valley dominance with Centennial and Liberty both representing in that state open championship game. And Desert Edge is also right there in the 5A. So, you know, in the first 5-6 years, it was like East Valley, just the powerhouses over there. And it's still like that. You have Chandler Unified, you know, representing in the Premier region and stuff like that. But I kind of like the balance. I always say, I think high school football, and especially in the state of Arizona, is the best when teams compete. Multiple teams are competing at the highest level. It's not like, hey, I know X, Y, and Z is going to win in December when you're predicting in August, because that's how it was for 3 or 4 years. So that storyline of kind of like, hey, is the West Valley's on top of the mountain now, but are they here to stay? Because once again, Chandler Unified, you have kids that are in the class of 2028, which are freshmen, in class of 2027. These kids are bigger, faster, stronger than, you know, every single year they're getting athletes that are just so explosive and so violent. What's that battle going to be like between those two areas of the state? And I'll tell you what, it's not a bad thing. That competition is really good for the state of Arizona. So I'm excited to kind of see how the power balance lines up this year.
All right, take us underneath the helmet. Who are some of the young men that you're watching that we're going to be seeing play on Saturdays, on Sundays, and say, man, I remember going and watching them when they were playing high school football in Arizona?
Yeah, I love offensive linemen and defensive linemen play. Like I love the trenches. To me, you win the football game, it's still in the trenches. And so I just look at Brophy, man. They have 4 kids on that offensive line and almost about 5 that have Division I offers. Logan Powell, offensive tackle, who's a senior, he's an absolute monster. You know, I just look at the frame, and we've seen multiple tackles transition to the next level and be big time collegiate players and NFL prospects now. But I think he's the next one coming on that Brophy front in 6A football. I go to the defensive side of the ball, and it's a University of Arizona commit at Mount Point named Caleb Jones, a kid who started, he'd be a 4-year starter at 6A football. I mean, that's incredible in its own. But I look at Caleb, he was an offensive lineman, transitioned to a 3-technique defensive tackle last year, and he is so violent off the snap. I just look at like hand technician, placement, ripping through double teams. He was an absolute monster in their scrimmage last week when it was Mount Point, Centennial, Highland, Red Mountain, some of the best teams in the state, and Caleb Jones is the best player on the field. You talk to so many coaches, and this is how you know a player is really good. When you talk to opposing coaches and you go, who's impressed you? And they don't list some of their own players. but a lot of them are listing Caleb Jones. So that's a kid where I go, hey, he's going to transition to University of Arizona, stay in state, and be an absolute mauler on the defensive line.
All right, let's talk quarterbacks because, of course, Brock Purdy is the gold standard. And if you look on my Twitter right now, you can see an interview I did with him on a Friday night where he didn't have any scholarships. So that's a Disney story right there. We saw Keaton Slovis play for the Colts 2 weeks ago against the Cardinals. We saw Spencer Rattler play for the Saints. Is it safe to say that Arizona is a quarterback state?
It really is. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like it's not just 6A anymore either. Because same thing. I came down in 2017, watched Brock Purdy and the Pumas. It was like a 65-63 win over Hamilton at Perry. It was just, fireworks left and right. Yeah, just fireworks left and right. And Brock didn't have a single offer. I think NAU had just kind of come in and kind of flirted with an offer, but he had really nothing after that. Or excuse me, before that he had nothing, and then after that he just kind of exploded. But 100%, I just look at, but those guys paving the way, and there was guys before them as well, but kind of like that social media era and Brock and Spencer and heck, I remember a couple of years ago turning on football on Saturdays, and it was like there was 10 to 12 games that spotlighted Arizona quarterback alums, and it was such a cool moment to go, hey, like you said, I watched that kid in 2017 and 18 and interviewed him, and I remember him talking about those things like, I can't wait to play there. So when you look at this next wave, okay, Pinnacle's quarterback Wyatt Horton, who's one of the best competitors in the state of Arizona, and he talks about, hey, I look up to those guys. Cale Snyder, who's going to be a sophomore quarterback at Perry, he goes, hey, I admire Brock. He's my role model. I want to be the next one. I think that's so cool. Even though I'm not even a player or a coach, I just go, hey, that's so amazing for the state where we have not just alums, but they're role models. And they always come back to the state, and they really believe, leave it better than when I got there. And they're always available for these guys. They're constantly, these guys are talking about, hey, I can reach out to these guys anytime. They're one text away. A lot of that's because of the quarterback training they do in the offseason. They all have similar quarterback trainers, but I think that's really, really cool. And to answer your question, yes, I think the state of Arizona is QBU.
And Roy Lopez, he's the one Arizona Cardinal who played high school football here for his dad. I'm actually set to talk to his dad this week, and we sat down with Roy during training camp. How cool of a story is that Roy Lopez went from, playing on Friday nights here, wasn't a heralded recruit, and now he's set to make the 53.
Yeah, and I've gotten to know his dad really well the last couple of years. And Matt, talk about that whole thing, that whole entire Lopez family is exactly what it is. It's a family, and they run like, you go to the Cardinals games, they're about 100 deep on the tailgate at the Great Lawn, man. And it's so many. There's another great thing about that is it's another player that comes back and gives back to the community. And so like every single year, he has the Roy Lopez Foundation, and he hosts a free youth camp where him and multiple Cardinals players are teaching technique. It's a whole day event. They got the taqueria trucks coming out. The whole family's just got a bunch of swag for the kids. It's a culture thing. It's awesome. And looking at that story and talking to his dad, it's almost every single time he tells about Roy's upbringing. He grew up in a locker room, born on the practice field, and just, the different programs that he played for and the guys that he looked up to and the work ethic that he put in every single day trying to reach that goal. Every time he talks about it, man, he tears up, and then Roy Jr., doing what he's doing for the hometown, playing for the Cardinals is so cool. But once again, it's a player that always comes back. He always gives back to the community, and he's always there. He was always there for players coming up and going, hey, I want to be like you. Can you please, maybe not like a complete mentor role, but a role model role. And that's another thing where I go, man, that's an alum who gets it, man. He understands it, and it's such an amazing story.
All right, let's talk about the roadmap to the state championship here. Who are the contenders, and what Friday nights do you have sort of circled on the calendar for those matchups that are going to give us some clues of who's going to get there?
I'm a firm believer, man. If you're unbeaten, then you get to stay on the throne until someone knocks you off. So I think the Lions, they're still up there. I mean, they are an absolute machine. And then you go down the list. I think Chandler Unified still Basha, Hamilton, and Chandler. Those guys just completely reload every single year. Everybody, it's so funny, kind of like the last 12 months, I've heard people, they just kind of say like, oh, I think Chandler might be down. Chandler's not down, man. Go watch them practice. Go watch them run track. Go watch them, their work ethic in the weight room. Those kids get after it every single day. And you can tell a team's going to be good the way they attack January and February. That's when I really can tell a team it's kind of put together and the work ethic they're putting in to go win in the fall. So you have those three teams. Centennial will be fine. They're really young, but they'll be totally fine. But I'm all in on the East Valley region this year, which is Red Mountain, Highland, Ale, Queen Creek, Williamsville. I think three teams out of that region. I think they make it. Now there's going to be that battle of like, hey, does a 9-1 5A team get over them? That's always up for debate because those teams beat up each other every single week. So you might have a 2 or 3 loss team in the open. But I think that region, Red Mountain's so loaded. Highland's always been up there. They've been a top 10 team in the state for a couple of years now. And Ale, Queen Creek, man, they're building something pretty special down there. So I think that's the road. And then a couple great games I have circled. I said, all these guys play each other. No one backs down for competition in 6A football. So right off the bat, Liberty and Desert Edge play week 1. I think that's a heck of a matchup. And a matchup that's kind of been brewing a little bit in the West Valley here. But I always love the Centennial plays Hamilton also week 1, but I love the Premier region. I think when you look at Chandler and Hamilton, every time those two teams play, it doesn't matter who has the better roster. It doesn't matter who has the better record. It's a rivalry, and so I always look forward to watching those games.
Should we expand the open?
I think 16 isn't the worst idea. It's just you get into this thing where, are we going to continue to go into winter sports? And I understand that for the smaller schools. But really, I think for the bigger schools, I don't think it's a horrible idea. And the AIA has moved the season back a little bit because, you start in the middle of August, you have 4 games that are 105 degrees at kickoff. That's kind of brutal for everybody involved. I don't think 16 is a horrible idea, but also at the same time, you're always going to get somebody who's upset. And I think I like the format of 8. Guys, on the financial part of it, it brings the AIA and the state of Arizona a lot of money for those first 2 games, the quarterfinals and the semis. The hosting schools, that's a big ticket. That's a lot of money. So that they're not, it's here to stay. I kind of like the 8 because honestly, I think if you get to 16, I don't think 16 and 1 match up really well. We kind of see that in the old 6A. So I like the 8. There's always gonna be someone upset, either that they made it because they kind of want to play in 5A or 4A, or that they think they should make it. But I like the 8.
All right, and finally, leave me with this. Where can we find you on Friday night? Are you in the studio? Are you out and about? Are you just staring at your phone in your car?
Yeah, I'm everywhere, man. So Thursday, I'm actually broadcasting a lot of Thursday night games of the week. Friday, I'm in studio, Lerner and Rowe in Scottsdale for the AIA wrap-up show, presented by Whataburger now, too. I'm pretty stoked about that. So there'll be a couple times I'm on location at Whataburger.
Well, at least you can get dinner out of the deal.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I'm a big fan of food, man. So that's a win-win for me. But yeah, so either there, but I always I love the pre-games of high school football too, man. Like that stuff's pretty special. And if anybody's ever played the game at that level, like just the pre-game atmosphere and the national anthem, that stuff never gets old. I still get chills listening to the national anthem if I'm on a sideline, man. So I'll try to watch a quarter or 2 around Scottsdale areas, a lot of Scottsdale teams because it's close to the studio. I'll be in there, and then I'll be covering some ASU stuff on Saturdays as well. So I'll be all over the place.
All right, I cut you off. So just one more time. Who is your show sponsored by?
Whatever. I know you got the Texas.
Like the we go
back
out of the deal, or like some ketchup.
Yeah, I think we get. I think I'm getting some free food, but that's a whole up for debate because I'm sure you're a Whataburger guy, and I'm from Northern California, so In-N-Out runs through my blood. So.
Yeah, man, it's Whataburger all the way, Texas forever. Well, you know what, we should decide this over food in studio and try to do a podcast in person while we're eating hamburgers, and we can argue. Does that sound good?
Hey, Mark, that's a win-win for me, man. I'll bring the In-N-Out goods, you bring Whataburger, but I think it's a good idea.
Done. All right, let's circle up in a couple weeks and look at all your predictions here and see if they've come true. Hey, man, thanks so much for joining us. Really, really looking forward to this season and always appreciate your perspective.
Appreciate it, Mark.